Welcome to Civilnet. My guest is Henriette Ahrens, who is the UNICEF Director, Representative here in Armenia. Henriette, welcome. Thank you for being with us on Civilnet. We're going to talk about a topic that is very close to your heart and one that is very close to the hearts of many who work in and with Armenia, and that is at-risk children, orphans specifically. And the reason I wanted to talk about this now is because UNICEF has a campaign called Every Child Needs a Family. And this is something that I've heard you talk about, and you talk about it very passionately. Your predecessor talked about this very passionately. This isn't something that's specific to Armenia then, this campaign?
No, the campaign is actually all over the region, the CEE-CIS region, and the process of deinstitutionalization is a goal setting for all of UNICEF, which has to do directly with our mandate, which is defending the children's rights.
So in the context of defending children's rights, what you are saying is that deinstitutionalizing at-risk children, children that are either real orphans, physical orphans, social orphans, economic orphans, what does that mean, deinstitutionalizing?
Now, here in Armenia, we still have 5,000 children, more or less, staying in institutions for most of the year. And this is 5,000 too many. Yeah, and
has that number grown, decreased?
The number has been stable, which is in itself quite worrying because the number of children overall has been reducing because of lower fertility in the country. And so proportionally, the number is growing.
So more children in orphanages in proportion to the overall number that used to be over time because our birth rates declined. So what does that mean? How does that happen? What's our explanation?
The explanation is it's a complex process. It's not easy to change the policy, whereas it is very needed. Nowadays, children are in institutions because they are either coming from poor families and are all socially vulnerable, or they have any kind of disability. Those are the biggest groups.
Is that unusual? Because, you know, in the West, orphan means no parents. In
yes.
Armenia, orphan means maybe parents who aren't able to take care of you.
Now, there are orphanages which have more than 80% of the children have at least one parent.
How many? 80?
More than 80% have at least one parent. Wow. And most of the children are actually in institutions here in so-called special schools. And these are schools that are directed to children with disabilities. But often the intake is done once, and it is done on a medical basis. And there is a lack of a more dynamic approach to actually evaluating whether a child should or not go to an institution.
So the ongoing assessment and education rehabilitation doesn't take place.
Yes. And I mean, tons of research has been done showing that it's bad for the development overall. To be in a family means to have longer term emotional bonds. That is to build a healthy person. That is a very, very important part of it.
So what is UNICEF's proposed solution?
UNICEF is we are working in an ongoing process with the Ministry of Social Issues as well as the Ministry of Education with territorial administrations on alternative care models. This means that we have models of daycare. Children are at home, but they can go to a daycare facility. And there is also the need of building up more social work to be able to address the family's problem.
Professionals.
Yes, because the solution is not to take the child out of the family and put the child into
where the professionals are ostensibly.
Yes, but to bring the preventive and social services to the family to avoid that this will happen. Because once, it is also shown that once the placement has taken place, the child normally stays on till the age of 18, and then there's another problem created.
That is a true problem, and I know that there are various organizations that try to deal with that, and maybe we'll talk about that the next time we invite you. Let's take this whole thing full circle. So you're saying that what sounds like common sense, that it's better to take the professional to the home where the child lives and work with both the parents and the children to improve the educational, developmental situation. That doesn't happen because of structural and economic issues, or that doesn't happen because of the social stigma?
No, it's both, and it's quite complex because it has to do with the lack of preparedness of many schools to actually, we have the proposal of addressing the needs of children with disabilities in a normal school setting. So it's a process of preparing the schools to have, to be able to, for these children to also go to normal schools on the one side, as well as to have social services, social workers set up, and to be able to address family problems and have a more individualized, a more dynamic approach.
That all applies to children who have some sort of developmental or physical disability?
As well as to children who have some problem because of migration related, that one parent is out, maybe there is a substance abuse problem. There are different types of problems that occur in families, and the solution is not to take out the child.
Are most of the 5,000 that are in institutions, do most of them fall into these categories, or do a lot of them fall into the category of economic orphan? The parent's family just says, I can't deal with it.
That is a good question that I can't really answer, because there is a bit lack of a good assessment. Some of the children come into institutions that are meant to be for children with special needs, but they are actually not having any special educational needs. So one of the proposals is to refine the assessment and to have a more periodic and standardized monitoring of the children that are in institutions.
Do we have the institutional, professional capacity to do that kind of ongoing assessment in Armenia?
Yeah, we are building it up. I think that there is willingness. We are working with parts of the government and with growing social workers, faculty here. There's willingness. It is a long-term process, and I think that we will need support. We will need more awareness about the problem, about the really detrimental influence it has to be in an institution, which some part of the society has not really seen or is aware of, I think.
You know, for a long time we used to say that homelessness is not an economic issue, it's a social issue. That there are poor people all around the world, but if your social structure is such that somebody gives you a cot to sleep on, somebody gives you a roof over your head, you know, that in the most difficult years, homelessness was not Armenia's #1 problem. Because of a social structure, a social safety net that existed. Is that still fair to say? Does that apply to children still?
I mean, yes. I mean, it is better to be with your extended family member, or with a family member, or in an alternative family setting. It's always better. Now, sometimes people or parents might think that because they cannot provide, they don't have the money to provide for a child to go to school, for a child to address a certain health problem that they face. So they think that the institution actually really provides food, shelter, education, but it does not provide
the bonds
and an emotional security and a place and identity in society, because that is one of the things that is so difficult to construct afterwards, because there is a lot of stigma and many difficulties to be an integrated and fully functioning member of society coming out of an institution.
The concept of a foster home, which is a home that's not your family at all, huh? Is that something that is done in the post-Soviet space?
Yes, it has been tested and done, and it is, families get training and get a financial contribution and take care of children that are not theirs. It has been introduced, I think, in 2005 here. There are now around 25 families functioning here in Armenia, and actually the government is not wanting at the moment, I think, to expand this program, but overall it is seen as a good, viable alternative, as well as cheaper than any institutionalized approach to this.
One last question. You know, the diaspora often supports orphanages in ways that some of us find excessive, in the sense that there are so many other children's needs beyond just the institutions. Is there something in this transitional process, in this effort to keep children at home and keep the emotional and social bonds strong, is there something that the diaspora can do in that regard, or is this really just the government's task?
No, there is a lot diaspora can do, because there are a lot of capacity building processes that need to take place for social workers, for the poor mothers. I mean, even mothers directly need to be targeted, and to build up community organizations, services, and approaches. So that is very welcome, and I think that that can be also funded. Actually, yes, I was in Brazil last week, and I spoke about that to the Brazilian diaspora community, and I think it's important to raise the awareness also outside Armenia about this issue.
Yes, because it already really is a social issue. It's something that needs to be dealt with. We're grateful that UNICEF deals with it. Thank you for being here and sharing your thoughts with us, and we hope we do this again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. My guest has been Henriette Ahrens, who is the country director for UNICEF, and we've talked about the needs of at-risk children, children who are in institutions, and a 21st century way of trying to resolve that problem, especially for a country as small as Armenia, with a birth rate that is decreasing and not increasing. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for watching Civilnet.